The history of jeans. Every single one of us has a pair of jeans sitting in our closet. Bootcut, skinny, flared, baggy, they've gone through more transformations than just about any other piece of clothing in recent history. And yet, they've maintained a constant presence in our lives. And at this point, it's hard to imagine a world where they didn't exist. But like just about anything in fashion, it's taken time for us to get to this point. And over the last 150 years, jeans have both shaped and been shaped by the world around them. They've had direct links to race, class, and gender, evolving from a symbol of enslavement to a tool of rebellion, and eventually, a message of empowerment. Let's get into it. Similar to other natural textiles like wool, silk, and linen, cotton has been a staple of human clothing for thousands and thousands of years. Due to its popularity, it was constantly being experimented with and innovated upon. And in the 17th century, a new technique emerged, with people weaving cotton yarn into sturdier twill fabric that was perfect for sailors and soldiers. To further emphasize this utilitarian quality, it was often dyed a dark shade of blue, which kept it looking crisp and clean for a longer period of time. The origins of this cotton twill technique are hotly debated to this day, with India having a version known as dungaree, Genoa referring to it as jeans fustienne, while in France it was called serge denim, which is actually where we get the modern-day term denim. At the height of the textile trade, it made its way to the West Indies and the southern colonies on the backs of millions of slaves, who were only allowed to wear, quote, Negro cloth. A catch-all term referring to a cheap and coarse fabric, it could be found in an assortment of fibers, weaves, and colors, but the cotton twill variety was one of the most common. Apart from its durability, it also created a sharp contrast to the clothing worn by wealthy white slave owners, who opted for crisp linen suits, silk dresses, and lace parasols. Indigo held a good deal of cultural significance in West Africa, and many of the slaves from that region were exploited for their knowledge of growing, processing, and dyeing with the plant. As a result of this work, the color trickled into their clothing, being a cruel reminder of the life they had been taken from. The widespread use of denim cloth throughout the South was in and of itself a reflection of the slave industry, with both cotton and indigo being some of the most profitable cash crops of the 18th and 19th centuries. During the gold rush, thousands of men and women made their way to the West Coast in an attempt to change their fortunes. By this point in time, cotton twill had become the fabric for workwear, as it was both durable and affordable, and laborers from all walks of life sported denim pants and shirts. In 1870, Jacob Davis, a Reno-based tailor, had found success with his distinctive denim waist overalls, which added copper rivets on the pants' weak points, making them last even longer than usual, thereby saving the wearer more money in the long run. Unable to keep up with demand, Jacob reached out to his fabric supplier, Levi Strauss, for financial backing, and the pair decided to go into business together. In 1873, they filed a patent for their design and moved manufacturing to San Francisco, marking the birth of the modern blue jean and the brand Levi's. If you were getting your hands dirty, you were probably wearing jeans, with farmers, miners, ranchers, and railroaders across the West Coast donning the distinctive blue denim. While there was no denying its practicality, because the fabric had been worn by laborers for so many years, it had developed a somewhat negative connotation, being associated with a poorer working class, and the average person didn't really wear it unless they had to. It wasn't until the 1930s, when the Wild West was getting romanticized in the media, that started to change. Actors like Gary Cooper, John Wayne, Ken Maynard, and Tom Mix became the face of the genre, all playing a similar brand of heroic cowboy who rode a dashing steed and saved the girl, all while wearing a 10-gallon hat and a pair of blue jeans. While a touch fantastical, the ensemble was still functional, and it became a symbol of the new American man, one who had a sort of rugged glamour that appealed to both men and women. As time passed and more people moved out of the countryside into cities and suburbs, the Wild West was a reminder of a bygone era that people couldn't help but feel nostalgic for. In order to cash in on this intrigue, dozens of dude ranches popped up in western states like Colorado, Montana, and Wyoming, curating an experience that was effectively a mid-century take on glamping. Visitors would ride horses, herd cattle, catch fish, and sing around the campfire, allowing them to live out their cowboy fantasies without any real risks. They also made sure to dress the part, with every member of these upper-middle-class families sporting boots and flannels and blue jeans, including the women, which even inspired Levi's to release their first pair of female framed denim in 1934. The best part about going on vacation is rubbing it in everyone's faces, and to make sure that all of their neighbors knew exactly where they'd been, they brought their jeans back home with them, kind of like showing up at school with a tan and a puka shell necklace after going on a cruise. When you think of military attire, various shades of green and beige probably come to mind first, but during World War II, denim jeans, jackets, and jumpsuits were adopted by the armed forces for manual labor. Because they were so comfortable, GIs also wore their denim off-duty, and blue jeans became a cultural signifier for those stationed abroad, being symbolic of the American way of life that they were fighting so hard to protect. With all of the men away from home, millions of American women were called upon to help with the war effort. This included working in factories, but their everyday garments were deemed ill-suited for this sort of manual labor, so they quickly donned the denim ensembles worn by their male counterparts. This helped distance denim from its traditionally masculine associations, but it had still yet to make it into the mainstream. Post-war, denim became a common garment for leisure activities stateside, but elsewhere in the world, it was still looked upon as informal workwear. In 1951, it even became an international talking point when singer Bing Crosby visited a Canadian hotel and was denied a room for being underdressed, with the receptionist mistaking him for a bum because of his dungarees. Although the confusion was quickly resolved, it brought up questions about whether or not it was appropriate to wear blue jeans in public, a debate that seems pretty silly in hindsight. A few months later, when Bing Crosby was named the honorary mayor of Elko, Nevada, he was gifted not only the key to the city, but a custom denim suit by Levi's. As a cheeky ode to the incident, on the inside of each tuxedo was a label saying, quote, "Notice to hotel men anywhere." This label entitles the wearer to be duly received and registered with cordial hospitality at any time and under any conditions. And with that, the Canadian tuxedo was born. Around the same time, blue jeans were adopted by the youth in defiance of their parents' more restrictive clothing and ideologies. This was reflected in 1950s pop culture, with jeans no longer exclusively being associated with heroic cowboy types, but making their way onto bad boys like James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause, Marlon Brando in The Wild One, and Elvis Presley in Jailhouse Rock. This made denim a symbol of rebellion and independence, which the older crowd wasn't too happy about. And the style became so controversial that restaurants, movie theaters, and even schools started instituting denim bans, which of course backfired, making kids want to wear them even more. Denim companies obviously weren't too happy about being associated with delinquency, and they even developed a dedicated denim council to combat the public's negative perception of the garment. The council's main strategy was wholesome advertising, moving away from the rough and rowdy cowboy imagery, and instead emphasizing how jeans were a family affair and totally right for school. While women had occasionally worn denim in the past, in the 1950s it would still be rather unusual to see, but by the tail end of the decade, that all changed. Marilyn Monroe, Elizabeth Taylor, Jane Russell, and Grace Kelly were some of the famous faces seen wearing blue jeans. But unlike their male counterparts, who made denim a symbol of disruption, they made it glamorous. By showing that you could still be feminine and fashionable without sacrificing comfort, they forced the public to reevaluate what was considered appropriate for women to wear. And soon enough, housewives and construction workers alike were wearing denim. During the civil rights movement, many activists took to wearing denim as a way of standing in solidarity with Black sharecroppers, whose experience was effectively slavery by another name. With the sharecropping system requiring a good deal of labor with very little financial return, these people often lived in poverty, and apart from their Sunday best, they had no choice but to wear whatever was the most affordable and practical. For women, this meant simple dresses made out of very cheap fabric, sometimes flour sacks, and for men, denim. This created an informal uniform that wasn't too dissimilar from what their enslaved ancestors were forced to wear years earlier, a haunting reminder of how little had actually changed since emancipation. By abandoning stiff suits in favor of denim, young Black activists pushed back against respectability politics, making the case that equal rights shouldn't be dictated by appearances. Denim's durability also made it practical for protests, helping the activists withstand the physical abuse that they were subjected to while fighting for what was right. The 1960s and 70s saw an even bigger increase in political activism, and with it, more denim. The hippies who declared that we should be making love, not war, made a point of rejecting societal norms, especially those in regard to fashion. They grew out their hair, tie-dyed their shirts, and wore jeans covered in rips and patches. Besides being a form of expression that blurred the lines between feminine and masculine, there was an artificially rustic quality to their appearance that was meant to tie into their more natural lifestyle choices. But ironically, as much as denim was associated with those damn hippies stateside, in general, they were still a symbol of classic Americana, as evidenced by the many soldiers in Vietnam who wore blue jeans. The women's liberation movement attempted to address the power imbalance between genders, advocating for equal rights and opportunities in education and employment, as well as control over our own bodies. Blue jeans were symbolic of this goal, being a gender-neutral garment that represented their hope to be seen as a person, not just a woman. This movement coincided with the sexual revolution, which saw a shift away from purity culture that dictated that a person's worth was directly tied to their virginity. And in response, teeny tiny denim hot pants became all the rage. At this point, Levi's were no longer the only name in the denim game, with Wrangler and Lee becoming their biggest competitors in the casual market. But with blue jeans now being worn by men, women, and children for just about any occasion, it wasn't enough to just be well made. They had to look good too. This led to the rise of fashion jeans spearheaded by brands like Sesson and Gloria Vanderbilt. Unlike the heritage denim brands of the past, which highlighted their wearability, these new jeans were all about the compliments you get while wearing them. As spandex became more popular in the 1980s, it made its way into denim, and brands went all in on skinny jeans, which gave up the strength of 100% cotton in favor of stretchiness. This sort of tight, fitted silhouette was all the rage at the time, being worn by punks, goths, yuppies, and rock stars. Coming in a variety of price points, jeans became a lot more accessible, even spreading all over the world. And just like that, they were no longer a political statement or a symbol of the working class, but an ordinary pair of pants. That's not to say that they didn't still cause controversy, as evidenced by Brooke Shields' infamous series of commercials for Calvin Klein, which had the 14-year-old actress make some incredibly suggestive remarks about her jeans. This sparked a debate about the state of advertising at the time, and if it was continuing the objectification of women, an argument that was also making the rounds in feminist circles, with some arguing that the sexual liberation of the previous decade had actually been a step in the wrong direction. In the 1990s, denim continued to flourish, in large part because of the era's more laid-back style philosophy, and dozens of brands popped up that catered to different demographics and subcultures. Ralph Lauren, Gap, and Calvin Klein were perfect for the girl next door and had a minimalist chic sort of vibe. Wrangler and Lee took a page from the past and returned to their Western roots. Meanwhile, Guess, Versace, and Jordache leaned into sex appeal and high fashion with scantily clad models. With the rise of hip-hop came a new urban street style influenced by Black culture that was spearheaded by brands like Karl Kani, Fubu, Rocawear, and Echo. There was no right or wrong way to wear a pair of blue jeans, as evidenced by all of the different pop culture figures seen wearing them, from royals like Princess Diana, to models like Cindy Crawford, to rappers like Tupac. In the early 2000s, denim brands began paying more attention to tweens and teens, who had become one of the biggest spenders in America. This led to more celebrity endorsements, wackier commercials, and more distinctive styles, as seen with Bongo, Paris Blues, Mud, True Religion, Diesel, Apple Bottoms, Miss 60, and Jenko. This ushered in an era of experimentation, the likes of which we had never seen, with patchworked, sequined, colored, and lace-up jeans hitting store shelves. It was also the era of logomania, with some brands like Von Dutch, Ed Hardy, and Baby Phat caring less about the denim and more about the branding. We of course can't forget about mall brands like Aeropostale, Abercrombie & Fitch, Old Navy, and Hollister, which were sort of a one-stop shop that sold everything from tops to shoes to jeans. The era was notable for introducing super low-rise jeans, which in spite of their popularity, sparked a good deal of controversy, even getting banned at some schools because they were too provocative. The beauty standard for the time was unbelievably skinny, something reflected in the decade's popular fashion trends, which were all about showing skin. While low-rise jeans gave you a lot more space to play with, like whale tails, belly button rings, and tramp stamps, they were also really only designed for one specific body type. And if you did have any extra meat on your bones, it was guaranteed that someone would point out your muffin top.
Take a look at these shots taken just last summer. She paired her Daisy Duke cutoffs with cowboy boots and she looked totally hot. Now it looks like Jess is enjoying a whole lot of Southern cooking.
Because of the economic downturn at the tail end of the 2000s, consumers moved away from premium denim brands in favor of affordability, leading to the rise of fast fashion retailers like Zara, H&M, Topshop, and Forever 21. These jeans were generically trendy, with no distinctive markers that made them stand out from the others. And with their quality being questionable at best, some consumers began hunting for better alternatives. This ironically brought them back to Levi's, which were touted as the ultimate form of vintage denim, and finding a pair while secondhand shopping was the dream for hipsters all across the country. Although fashion has continued to be used as a political statement in the 21st century, blue jeans aren't playing as big of a part in the conversation as they used to. That is until recently, when an unofficial denim culture war has broken out online. In July 2025, American Eagle launched a new ad campaign using the tagline, "Sydney Sweeney has great jeans." Loosely inspired by Brooke Shields' Calvin Klein ads from the 1980s, which was a wild point of reference to begin with, the ad drew criticism for fetishizing Sydney's body and framing her whiteness as the pinnacle of desirability. This direction was linked to the rise of conservatism in the United States, something evidenced by the re-election of Donald Trump, which has resulted in the removal of diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, restrictions on female reproductive rights, and the mass deportation of immigrants. Although the brand has since stated that they had no political agenda, when you keep in mind Sydney Sweeney's Republican affiliations, it's hard to believe it was just a coincidence. Conservatives have since come to Sydney's defense, saying that cancel culture and wokeness have gone too far, completely forgetting that a few short years ago, they swore to boycott Bud Light because they had a spokesperson they didn't agree with. Whether intentional or coincidental, in the weeks that followed, several other denim brands have released their own campaigns that seem to take the opposite stance as American Eagle. The most notable was Gap's collaboration with global girl group Cat's Eye, which was praised for its inclusivity and diversity. Now you might be asking, why does that matter? But how many times have you seen someone that looks like Sydney on a billboard? Now how many times have you seen someone who looks like Laura? Considering how jeans have been glamorized, politicized, and memeified over the last 150 years, it's no surprise that a single pair can stir up such intense emotions. So the next time you slip on your favorite jeans, just remember, you're wearing a piece of history. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Bye!